This review is not spoiler-free and contains content that may be disturbing to some. Viewer discretion is advised.
The 2010s. The decade where I was a young teenager in the closet going through every possible loophole to explain why I was so obsessed with huge tits, thick thighs, and yandere girls, despite being supposedly straight. I am doing it to respect women's bodies!
For an hour?
I swear I'm straight! I only like dicks!
Do you even know what a dick looks like?
No, but I can't love boobs or Jesus won't love me! Being interested in the yandere archetype, I inevitably stumbled on the 2011 anime Futurediary. The show is mostly famous for having the most well-known yandere character as its deuteragonist. If you're unfamiliar, a yandere is an archetype typically seen in anime that depicts someone sweet, usually a girl but it can be any gender, that turns overly violent and cruel when it comes to their romantic interest. To put it simply, yandere is the anime word for an incel. Futurediary takes this character type to the extreme, to the point where it's easy to hope that the main couple doesn't get together in the end. That, alongside a flimsy twist and poor character development, completely drains the show's potential. Futurediary is a good idea, buried under a very thick cement called its love story. The premise of a Hunger Games-style survival game where players compete to become God using diaries to tell the future is a good idea. The addition of having two of the players end up falling in love is also a potential way to add suspense and tragedy. But the story doesn't get utilized to its full potential because it tries to romanticize an abusive relationship. I would like you to picture a timid, quiet girl is trying to live a peaceful life but is unaware a boy her age is stalking her. While the boy is tailing her, he keeps a diary about everything she does, which he updates every 10 minutes. When they first meet, he kisses her without her consent and then proceeds to send her 40 text messages in a row, not getting the message that she's not interested. The girl is terrified, but after being tossed into a life-or-death situation that she's unequipped to handle, she has no choice but to rely on this obsessed stalker to protect her. Things get worse when she finds dead bodies in his house. Now she's afraid for her life being around her only source of protection. The boy takes advantage of his position to keep her from making any friends as he wants her all to himself. He grows furious when she makes friends with other boys, knowing there's a slight chance she might fall in love with someone else. In a jealous rage, he threatens to kill the girl's friends, and the only way for the girl to stop him is to declare that he's her boyfriend. As a result, she thinks that she's the only one capable of keeping him in check, which leads to her growing insanely guilty when he kills someone. After the boy locks her up in an abandoned warehouse, spoon-feeds her half-naked, and almost takes her clothes off so she can go to the bathroom, the girl has had enough and wants nothing to do with him. But she's told she just didn't give the boy a chance. Sounds pretty awful, right? Now, you might be asking, how could this kind of romance ever work? Why, simply reverse the genders, of course. Suddenly, the one being stalked is a wuss for not wanting the hot girl's attention, and the stalker has done nothing but demonstrate her love for him. I love double standards. Most of Futurediary's problems stem from its refusal to portray Yuno as the blatant antagonist she is. Instead, it tries to write her off as a misunderstood hero. Heavy reliance is on her sad backstory and the big twist towards the end, which leads to the assumption that she can do whatever she wants if she has a tragic past involving abusive parents. Don't make me sing the song. While sad backstories can lead to understanding, they don't excuse the horrible shit the character's done. And no matter what, abusive relationships aren't for anyone. The romance is so bad that the main character Yuki has to explain that he fell in love with Yuno because she was, quote-unquote, yes. Drugging you, locking you up in a place where your family and friends can't find you, trying to keep you from making friends, keeping you isolated and afraid, manipulating you into killing all of your newfound friends. Truly, she has done nothing but look out for you. I also hate how the show acts like the only reason Yuki should be having second thoughts about Yuno is the corpses in her house. You know, because she's just been so good to him otherwise. The corpses in question are her abusive parents who would often put her in a cage. She left them in there for so long that they eventually starved to death. So, how exactly was Yuki the first person to ever find out about these corpses? Did no one ever think to put out a search warrant for Yuno's parents or even go to their house? It's said that they owned a bank, so I doubt no one bothered to look for them. She couldn't even have bothered to bury the bodies until after Yuki saw them, which she conveniently forgot about because she's developed selective amnesia. Yeah, having selective amnesia doesn't tie into the plot. It's just a convenient way for the problem of Yuki knowing her secret to be swept under the rug. Why the MC ends up loving her back, I'll never understand. Yuki reciprocating Yuna's feelings also leads to character regression. Yuki is set up to go through a classic coming-of-age story. After his parents' divorce, he's so afraid of failure and abandonment that he isolates himself and sticks to the same boring routine. He refuses to grow up and take on responsibilities that could result in him screwing up and insists on staying in the shell that's lonely but safe. As he's found comfort in this new lifestyle, he's shoved into a survival game where several people are out to kill him without warning. While playing the game, he learns to open up to others about his insecurities, allowing himself to make new friends. In doing so, he finally sees how hard it was to breathe in that shell he hid in, and he wants to stay in this new open space with fresh air. Giving him an obsessed stalker whom he's forced to rely on to survive this game is an obstacle in his growth to maturity that he needs to get past. At first, it seems the show will have Yuki kill Yuno at the end, showing that his character has grown strong enough to stand up to the people that have put him through so much pain. But instead of moving on from his abuser, Yuki gives in to her and ends up worse off than he started. In the pilot, he's reserved and refuses to change out of fear of failure. When he wins the game and becomes God in the final, he refuses to create a new world after the destruction of the previous one because he feels he doesn't have any reason to live after Yuno's death. That is, until Yuno from another timeline comes to see him, then he's super motivated to make a new world. Rather than growing more assertive, Yuki grows more passive. Once he learns that Yuno manipulated him into killing his friends by lying that he could bring them back to life later, and manipulated him into having sex with her, he just kinda brushes it off as a, ha, that's my girlfriend moment.
私、嘘ついてた。神になればみんな生き返るって。神になっても生き返らせることができないのは、私がゲームに参加して、最初にデウスに聞いた。
ユノを殺せば、僕は神になるかもしれないけど、そしたらユノは生き返らないってことだろう。ユノを殺すぐらいなら、僕は神にならない。ユノと一緒に死ぬ。
I also love how Yuki cares more about his stalker's death than he does about the friends she tricked him into murdering. He's also incredibly passive to his dad killing his mom. Oh, my dad left me to die and then killed my mom, but he apologized so I love him or something. Shit, he's dead. Now I want to bring him back to life for some reason. Well, our main leads are a botch, but surely the other characters will be interesting, right? Future Diary has the typical enemy of the week formula. It follows through on what it promises by having the enemies each have a different kind of future diary that our leads have to learn how to defeat. Some of the villains are more interesting than the heroes themselves. The fifth is an insane 5-year-old who treats killing everyone like a game. It's oddly adorable, even if it does require a lot of suspension of disbelief. The 12th is the best thing to ever grace cinema. I love his whole superhero shtick and how he sneaks in a Power Rangers reference in there. It's amazing. My favorite character, Menene, the 9th, is a terrorist who specializes in bombings. She's one of the more focused on villains as she isn't killed until much later on. Not only did I find her to be more investing than the main characters, but she has a romance with the police officer Nishijima that should have been the focal point. Having been stranded in the Middle East when her parents died, Menene never had the chance to just be a girl. She grew up too fast to stay alive and was dependent solely on herself. Nishijima sees the innocence she was forced to bury, and he helps her excavate it by being the first to show her an act of kindness. That's the type of love story I would expect from the show to add a layer of tragedy, rather than one where I'm constantly begging for one of them to die. Some of the villains, on the other hand, are just plain awful, which leads me to one of my biggest complaints about the show, also potential trigger warning for the R word. It seems to have this idea that if someone is raped, that makes them interesting. The 6th diary owner, Tsubaki, became the subject of a religion after her parents lied about her having clairvoyance. The followers seemed to believe that having sex with her would cleanse them of their sins because... I don't know. Tsubaki's rape seems like a cop-out to add some depth to her, as it plays no point in the story other than for her to have her followers threaten to rape Yuno. Even then, the results would be the same had she simply threatened to kill her. If that wasn't enough rape, we get more with the seventh eye. Yay! 'Cause it's hard to make women intriguing without having them go through something sexual, romantic, or apparently. It's pretty hard to get into a show when only a handful of its characters are at all intriguing. Even Yuki's temporary friend group is more investing than half of the diary owners. They all have standout personalities that bounce off each other amazingly and are a step in the MC's character development to coming out of his shell. They even set up Yuki to find a better romantic partner after growing past Yuno with Akise, a guy who respects him enough to make his own decisions and flirts with him without being a total creep. But nope! He gotta die, 'cause we all know abusive straight relationships are infinitely better than healthy gay ones. Yuki doesn't even have any reaction to Akise confessing to him. Again, why does the kid get more passive as time goes by? The show relies on this mystery element to catch the audience's attention, and while I can't acknowledge that the build-up is amazing, the final payoff leaves more plot holes open. The biggest twist of the show is time travel related, which I think we can all agree is impossible to write without having a few holes, no matter how well it's handled. The twist is that the world the survival game takes place in is actually a second timeline. The first timeline had Yuno win the survival game and become God. But after realizing that she couldn't revive Yuki, she went back in time to play the game again with him. Get ready, kids! It's time to play Everything Wrong with This Twist in under 2 minutes. Since Yuno used her god powers to go back in time, was she a goddess during the second survival game? If so, while that would explain how a 14-year-old girl is stronger than most grown men, most of, if not all of the problems she came across could have been fixed pretty quickly if she had bothered to use her powers to their full extent. Also, I love how the previous god Deus never noticed that Yuno was a goddess. Thanks, God! You're super useful. Along with the main twist, there are plenty of holes in the third act. For one, there's another twist where Deus turns Minena into a goddess, and she comes back to help Yuki when Yuno's trying to kill him in reverse time again. So she technically never died, but the show acts like if Yuno kills Yuki, she'll win the game. It's been pounded into the audience's heads that if a future diary is broken, its owner dies. Does Minena get special treatment because she's a goddess? Then why does Yuno have to die for Yuki to become God? One positive thing I can give the show is at least half of its ending. When Yuno went to the third timeline to kill her past self and take her place, things got changed so much that the survival game doesn't happen, leaving all of the players to find their happy endings. It's nice. I will admit, seeing the 12th arrest the 3rd and then rubbing it in his face was the best thing I've seen all week. Almost made the rest of the show worth watching. But sadly, well enough can't be left alone. The manga ended with Yuno from the 3rd world visiting Yuki sitting in a space in the destroyed 2nd world. The anime left it as hinting that Yuno possibly found her way to Yuki. But just when you think Future Diary will do something subtle, they shit out an OVA that's just 20 minutes of filler before getting to the explanation of the ending. I will give the show that in the end Yuki at least doesn't get with the Yuno who abused him, but it does just further pound Yuki's character into the ground. Rather than growing past his abuser, he becomes so reliant on her that he wallows in his depression for 10,000 years before she comes to see him. This ending comes off more as frustrating rather than the happy moment it was meant to be. Overall, Future Diary is bad in all the wrong ways. It tries to put sympathy on an abuser, it tries to romanticize a toxic relationship, and the twist it relies so heavily on to bring the abuser's sympathy falls apart when you think about it for more than a minute. Even if they did take out the main love story, it would be okay at best. I can only recommend it if you're interested in the yandere archetype, but even then I would much rather recommend Higurashi. If not, then you can give this one a skip. With that, I'm out. Quiz thingy! What's your favorite Dera type? Mine, ironically, is yandere as long as it's done in a way that's not Yunogasai. Leave your answers down below and I'll see you next time. Bye!